The ability to speak might not make you intelligent, but we're going to try to prove otherwise. This is the Clashing Sabers podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon, and I am here with my co-host. He's the man whose anger issues are so wild they can make Chopper look like a model citizen. It's
Davor.
Davor. How are we doing tonight?
I'm doing good. How are you, Brandon?
I am good, man. I'm good. I'm excited to be talking tonight because you're not actually the one with the anger issues on the podcast. That's going to be our subject for tonight. That's Mr. Darth Maul. That's
Yes.
Maul, Shadowlord. That's what we're talking about tonight is Maul, Shadowlord. Really excited to preview this with our best and butts format, which we'll discuss more in just a little bit. Excited to have you guys along for the ride as we look forward to this show that's coming out in a couple weeks. It's not too long until this show comes out.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen all in a month. And then we're going to talk about it again. It's going to be great stuff. So I'm really excited about it. Maul is one of my favorite characters in Star Wars. So anytime I get to talk about him or get new content with him, it's always a good time. But if you guys like Maul and you want more Maul content and stuff around Maul and the stuff that we're doing, then you can go over and follow us on social media at Clashing Sabers on everything. But more importantly, make sure if you're not already, while you're listening to this, go sign up on our Patreon and support putting books into classrooms. We put Star Wars books into classrooms through the money we raise through our Patreon, and we send them to teachers. So if you know a teacher, you can go nominate them over on our website as well, and we can get them some books. So we'll plug that a little bit more at the end. But I just wanted to put that little nugget out there if you guys needed something to do while you're watching or listening to the show. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Davor, first of all, how you been, man? I feel like we missed a recording, which was fine, just life circumstances. But I feel like it's been forever. Just how's life?
It's all right. It's been a year of ups and downs so far in old 2026. Yes, that's the year we're in.
Yeah,
but, plugging along.
Yeah, I feel that. Absolutely. It does start to feel, it's felt like since 2020, every year is just like it just bleeds into the same ball of energy.
It's all 1 year.
It's all 1 year.
Yeah, people will ask me stuff about like, oh, when did you get married or whatever? I'm like, 20. I'm like counting. I'm like, I don't know. It's all 1 year.
It all fits together into one big, what the hell is going on here? That's pretty much what it is. So I feel that. Yeah. Have you been Star Warsing anything fun lately?
I have been. So this week I started reading Thrawn Alliances.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, okay.
Yeah, so I made it a goal this year to read. I read the 2017 Thrawn, like the first canon Thrawn novel, a couple of years back. I don't remember when. But I made a goal this year to read all the other ones. And so I'm now on Thrawn Alliances, and I've got some ways to go. I got 4 more to go.
Why are you punishing yourself?
I don't know.
Okay.
As someone who famously is very indifferent on Thrawn, I don't know why.
Yeah. The first one, the Thrawn book, like the self-titled book, so good.
Yes.
Insanely
really good.
And then they just got progressively. Here's the thing. I don't know if they got progressively worse or the repetitiveness of them just started to wear down on you. Because Lindsay and I talked about this on Don't Burn the Sacred Text, where it's like every Thrawn book is the same. You're confused for 350 pages. Then they explain what you just read for 10 pages. And then the book's over.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the original Thrawn novel, the 2017 one, kind of changed that, and then it, or I guess wasn't that, and then it became that with Alliances and I don't even remember what the other ones are called, and then you have the Ascendancy trilogy and all of that stuff. Has your opinion on Thrawn changed at all? Are you more or less indifferent?
No, I feel like I'm about the same. I may be about halfway through Alliances right now. I do like sort of the Vader Thrawn like buddy cop-esque, like conceit of it.
Yeah.
I like the plot itself, or I guess plots, because it's technically got that like past present. There's like 2 stories in one book. Like the plots are not much to like write home about. And yeah, there is sort of I'm sort of starting to feel that element, I think, of what you were talking about just now, in terms of like, you get that structure of like, you know, of like Thrawn's always like 10 steps ahead, and everybody's discovering how like he's known this whole time what's going on. And so like there's a little bit of that where I'm like, okay, like sure.
And it's like, dude, if you just queued us in like 60 pages ago, we could have solved this together. Like, we could have done this together. That's the frustrating part. Well, here's the thing. Like, I think Timothy Zahn is really good at world building, right? I think he does that really well. You know, you go back to things like Outbound Flight and stuff like that. Even the Heir to the Empire trilogy expanded the Star Wars galaxy quite a bit. You know, I thought each book got progressively worse. Like, the Heir to the Empire is fantastic, and then Dark Force Rising is okay, and then The Last Command, I think, kind of fell off. But the world building there was all really, really strong. I don't feel like his character development is as strong. I think he kind of gets stuck in place with where his characters start and finish.
Yeah.
And then there's the weird dynamic that they put in place where it's like they're trying to make Thrawn kind of a good guy without making him a good, like making him a likable bad guy.
Yeah. I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you know, that was a struggle for me, for sure. And I never could get into the Ascendancy trilogy, but I think it's mostly because I had checked out by that point. You know what I mean? And when you told me you had 3 more of these books coming, I just couldn't take it anymore. So for me, Lindsay and I finally caught up on Master of Evil and Don't Burn the Sacred Text. So that episode's out now. So that was a lot of fun to do. And you and I haven't really talked about it that much, other than the fact that you really, really liked it.
Yes.
Spoiler alert, I didn't dislike it, but I liked it less after our conversation on Don't Burn the Sacred Text than I did when I went into it.
I got that to look forward to in my queue, I guess.
So here's the thing. And this, I'm going to tie this to what I'm reading now too, which is Low Red Moon, which I know you also loved. I think Adam Christopher and Mike Chen, their prose is both insane. Like, there's not an enjoyable or a not enjoyable part of reading their books, right? And Shadow of the Sith and Brotherhood are some of my favorite Star Wars books. I think they're absolutely insanely good. For Master of Evil, it had a lot of ups and downs for me. There were some parts I got really insanely excited about, and some parts I was like, why are we doing this if there's this other cool thing that's going on over here, right? And I won't go fully into that, but like the droid, this is probably gonna ruffle your feathers. The droid part really got to me. I felt like it was a really good story. It just wasn't part of that story.
Okay.
And so then I come to Low Red Moon, and I'm enjoying it, but I have some issues with like the structuring of it and some of the time jumps and stuff.
Okay.
So it's just interesting, I think, for me lately, that these authors that I'm really excited about, you know, are having some ups and downs. And I think that's okay, you know? Like, not everything has to be Brotherhood. Brotherhood is one of the best Star Wars books ever written.
Yes. 100%.
Like, hands down. Not everything has to be that. Not everything has to be Shadow of the Sith. Not everything has to be Light of the Jedi. Some books are just, you know, they're good. They're solid, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm reserving judgment on Low Red Moon, because I'm like 38% of the way through on my Kindle.
Okay.
So there's a lot that it can do. But I've been trying to, as we're getting back to putting out Don't Burn the Sacred Text episodes, step out and like check in with myself as I'm reading the book instead of waiting to the end to do it. And I'm just kind of noticing the same thing where it's like, when I'm reading it, I'm really enjoying it. When I'm thinking about it, I'm kind of going, which is it's just an experience that's happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
So, yeah. So it's been interesting to kind of like go through that as we're getting back into putting those episodes out. But what really stood out to you I mean, you of course put out an amazing article on the website, which you guys can go check out now. But like, what were the things that really stood out to you in Master of Evil that made it, as you said a few episodes ago, like a 6 out of 5?
Yeah. Well, there was the droid of it all. I think
Yeah, for
just
sure.
yes, like that, and that's gonna be that's a motif going to Low Red Moon, and I've got something in the queue that's gonna come out once you get done with Low Red Moon. That's kind of all about the ND5 of it all in that book. I think there's that. I think I think part of it goes back to sort of the strength of Adam Christopher and like goes back to Shadow of the Sith. I think the way that he does stuff around the dark side and the force, I think the perspective that he brings to that is really fresh and new. Like he has sort of like, especially there's some of it in Shadow of the Sith, but I think especially in Master of Evil, sort of like leans almost sort of like into those horror vibes
Yeah.
that I really like, and I think he does a really good job with. I think that's good, and I think is also just like the way he sort of handled doing a Darth Vader book, which I sort of write about in that article of like the you sort of really have to thread this needle of like he's this main character in your story, but like not necessarily making it all about him or from his point of view, like trying to do something about it that's interesting because it's so hard to like work with that kind of a character, particularly where like you might not have a lot of room to like make the character change and grow over time because like he still has to be the bad guy that we know by the time you get to A New Hope. Like he still has to be that guy.
Yeah.
Like he can't be like good and then like bad again. He can't like roller coaster really. He has to be a Sith kind of just all the way through for 20 years. So yeah, that's just a sort of like storytelling challenge, and I think he finds a good way to like tell a Vader story particularly in this particular moment where he's literally been Darth Vader for like 5 minutes. Like you really
Yeah.
can't move. You really can't move much in this. Kenobi, like things later, like okay, maybe you have a little bit more wiggle room. Here, you like he's Darth Vader. So
See, but that's part of the problem with the book for me is I thought we didn't spend enough time with Vader. Like Vader felt like an ancillary character to a book that had him on the cover.
okay,
And I think there's a misnomer in stories like, yes, characters have to change, especially your main character, your protagonist, but that doesn't always have to be a positive change, right?
yeah,
Tragedy is a real thing, and that doesn't always have to be an external change. And I know you know that, of course, right? And I'm not saying you're saying otherwise, but I think Star Wars has kind of got caught in this trap where they feel like they have to have these characters that drastically change across these books, but they know it can't be these main characters. So they give you Rey's parents, they give you Holland Goth, they give you these other characters who can go through these great changes as kind of supplements for your main characters. And I thought if we had explored Vader a lot more, spent more time, eh, spoilers, but spent more time in the Virgins, spent more time in him meeting some of the characters he did in there, stuff of that nature, and really got into his head about that. Like, you could have devolved him deeper into the dark side in this book, and I don't think you really moved him at all. In a book called Master of Evil, and like you said, he'd been evil for like 5 minutes, like he's not the master of it yet, right? He's trying to master it. And he doesn't get there by the end of the book. He doesn't really move by the end of the book. And that was so I guess you and I kind of wanted different things out of Vader in this book, which that's part of Star Wars, right? That's part of storytelling is different people wanting different things out of the character. So that's not a good, bad, or indifferent thing. It's just, people come to stories for different purposes.
Absolutely.
So but it'll be interesting with what we're talking about tonight with Maul Shadowlord, because here you have a character who you've got to get him from Clone Wars to Rebels through this series, right?
Yes.
And he's definitely a different character there, but he's still Sisyphus. So, he's still got to have the same issues and stuff going on. So let's go ahead and jump into talking about Maul Shadowlord, because we're really, Really excited about this show. Really excited about new Star Wars animation. And for those of you who haven't been around for our Best and Butts episodes, the way that we do these is we talk about two things that we, in this case, are concerned about, not looking forward to, think could ruin the experience of Maul Shadowlord for us. And then we talk about two things that we are looking forward to, which is our best, two things that we think could make the show really, really successful. So, Davor, do you want to start? Do you want me to start? How do you want to do this?
You start.
All right. So we'll start with our butts.
Yes.
And so we'll start with our smallest butt to our biggest butt. Because we like big butts on here and we cannot lie. So I will tell the truth and tell you I am not looking forward to another post Order 66 Jedi surviving and going through the same path that everybody else goes on.
I've been on the show too long. I knew you didn't like this.
Yeah. Here's the thing, okay? I'm not totally against having another Jedi survive, right? There were 10,000 Jedi in the galaxy. Yeah. We've seen 20 survive, right? That's not a big ratio. So it's not the fact that we have another Jedi survive. It's if we have another Jedi survive and go down the same path towards either I've got to go to the dark side or I've got to die, right? That becomes problematic for me. There is this twist that we have now of the Master still being alive. So that has the potential to take this in a new direction, right? And I think if Maul kills the Master early on and we don't have the tension between the two dynamics of like, do I follow this Master? Do I follow that Master? Kind of similar to how we had with Ezra, but in a different time, place, in a character who's going to be in a different mind space.
Yeah.
We're going to have a retread of the same old story. And one thing that I am really looking forward to with this story, and I'll kind of talk about this more in my butts, is just the things that it has the potential to do that other stories haven't had the potential to do, right? This show has the potential to tell some really new stories, and I don't want that to be missed out on, because when we get that, it's going to set up future stories to tell in their own right as well. And so if we just get, here's another Order 66 Jedi that has survived, and they're going to go on the same path that all the other Jedi that have survived went on, and we don't have anything interesting like we do with like a Kanan or a Cal, or these ones who have, these surviving Jedi who have raised the bar and climbed up the pantheon of people's favorite characters, and we just have another kid like we did in Tales of the Jedi, or in Tales of the Bounty Hunters, or whatever it was. Tales of the Underworld. I don't know. What was that show called? The one with Asajj Ventress. Was it Tales of the Underworld?
Yes.
Okay, that one. You know, we just had another random Jedi surviving. We've gotten them, even though it's not canon, we've gotten a bunch of them in Visions. You know, we've had random Jedi surviving everywhere, books and whatnot. If this is just another retread of that, I'm gonna be really tired of it. If they really lean into what makes this character unique, this Jedi Padawan that survived unique, her unique situation, her unique experiences, her unique tensions, then we get something really interesting, right? So I look at something like Inquisitor Rise of the Red Blade, my favorite book of all time. Even though Iskat ends up an Inquisitor, right? Which is kind of the path that they follow. She ends up there in a very different way. They tell a very different story with her. So for me, it's not so much the Jedi surviving. It's not so much the falling to the dark side or the dying. It's not the end or the beginning. It's the journey that they go on in between.
Yeah.
And I put this as my 2 instead of my 1 because I really do feel like they're going to be able to handle this quite well. One, because Sam Witwer and Dave Filoni together are just a dynamic duo. And I think that their conversations have led to what we're going to get in a lot of the show. But 2, because you're in such a different situation with Maul as your central figure and what everything's going to revolve around, or everything should revolve around. You know, I'm hoping that this isn't like we were talking about with Master of Evil, where the character you're most interested in is off to the side. Like, I want to follow Maul here and have that, you know. So We'll see. Not super excited about that being an aspect of it, but there are plenty of ways that they can make it work.
Yeah, I think you and I have very similar number 2 butts. Mine is not specifically about the kind of Order 66 aspect and another Jedi, but it does sort of relate to this sort of interestingness factor because if you look at like all the pieces of the show, like all the things that as far as we know right now make up Maul Shadowlord, it's a lot of things that like have been sort of familiar ground. Like you've got Maul, we spent a lot of time in Clone Wars and Rebels. This early Empire period, we've gotten a lot of that lately. We like Bad Batch, Mask of Fear, Fallen Order. The Underworld we've seen a lot of with Outlaws and Low Red Moon and Tales of the Underworld, right? So there's all these different pieces, and like the Jedi surviving Order 66 and being on the run and trying to build a new life. We've gotten a lot of variations on that over the last couple of years. And so, yeah, so for all those reasons, I think my number 2 worry is like, will this show have new and interesting things to say about some of or all of these things, right? And if the answer is no, then much like with you, like that would be an issue if we do get sort of a retread or variation on a theme, as opposed to the show being, and Maul being this lens of like, okay, here's this different side of the galaxy that we didn't really know a lot about, but now because we're telling a Maul story, we actually have a window into it.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. There are, like you pointed out, so many elements to this show, right? Retread or not, like there's so many angles that they could tell the story from, that it would honestly, like, I was gonna try to find another word, but this is just the right word. It would be lazy to do anything other than do something new.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say it would be a cash grab because we know the money around streaming is not huge, right? So I feel like the things that end up on streaming now are more passion project type things, that are direct to streaming, not like, went blockbuster and then came to streaming.
Yeah.
Especially animation side of things, where it's not as popular as your other avenues of storytelling. So I feel like there's an investment in this product that I'm really looking forward to, that I'm hoping doesn't lead to those things being just retreads, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, we've gotten a lot of that stuff, and at some point it does get exhausting to just get that. You know what I mean? And that's something they're going to have to start being wary of as they're continuing to put out more and more content, right? I was just thinking about at the beginning of, Star Wars coming out again and being part of the Disney era, thinking about the books that came out, right? And we got them kind of all over the timeline, Tarkin, we got Dark Disciple, we got Master and Apprentice, we got all kinds of stuff all over the place, Lost Stars. And I was like, why aren't they doing that anymore? And it's not that they're not doing that, I don't think. It's that we just have so much where just the statistics of it all starts to add up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but that is something they have to be aware of, right?
Yes.
So I think that kind of leads into my number 1, but if we're being honest, because I think it ties into what you're talking about, and we didn't share notes or anything, so we didn't know what each other was going on here. But I think the idea of not having character development for Maul is something that does concern me, right?
Yeah.
Because as I mentioned at the beginning, Maul is Sisyphus. And for those of you who don't know the story of Sisyphus, Sisyphus was damned to roll a boulder up a hill, up a mountain for eternity. And right when he was about to get to the top, it would roll back down and he'd have to start over. That's Maul in Star Wars. If you haven't listened to the Freddie Prinze Jr. rant about this, go listen to it. I just watched it a couple weeks ago again. It popped up on my feed and I was like, yeah, I'm watching this. It's so good, but it's so true, right? Where Maul needs to fail. He needs to fall. that is part of who he is, and he's in on the bit. He knows he's not the one, right? So how do you make this show compelling and have character growth without success?
Yeah.
Right? Because Maul can't die, so you don't
Mhm.
have the easy out of that.
Yeah.
You have to get him to a very specific place, right? From the brash, headstrong, wants to impress dad, guy that he is at the end of Clone Wars, to the old master that we see in Rebels. You've got to get that dynamic. You have to create that motivation and change in motivation for him, because you went from him trying to connect with Ahsoka to take down Palpatine to trying to connect with Ezra to take down Palpatine. But there's a different aspect to it, because with Ahsoka, he wants to be partners. With Ezra, he wants an apprentice, right? And so how do you get that shift in dynamic? I think it's going to be something that they have the potential to explore and get that motivation aspect of it in there. I don't want to say I'm really concerned. I'm really intrigued to see, because I do have faith in Dave Filoni, how they're going to pull this off. I'm also really going to be intrigued to see if the fans get it. Honestly, you know what I mean? Because it's really easy when there's not these huge swings in character growth. I think of somebody like Rey, for example, right? Rey has character development. It's just very internal, right? It's not these huge swings of, technical abilities and stuff like that. Or, like Luke's very blatant, hero's journey.
Yeah.
We're not going to get this blatant, huge change for Maul. We're going to get something very subtle and cerebral almost. And so are the fans going to get that? And if they don't, what's that going to create around the narrative around this story? All of that kind of concerns me, and has me really wondering, how do you stay true to this character while also making him a feature character? And on that note, I think he needs to be the feature character. I don't want this to be following the Jedi or something and Maul is just off to the side. I want Maul to be our POV character. And so all of that kind of goes into, how do we get the character development for this guy who doesn't have the Star Wars out of dying and needs to get to a very specific point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of this aspect of the conversation sort of mirrors what we've been talking about with Mando and Grogu, right? Because like we've talked about similar sort of concerns and wondering about like, okay, where are those two characters going to go from beginning of the movie to the end of the movie? Are they going to feel like static characters, or do we feel like they're different by the time you get to the end of that movie? And then similar with Maul, yes, like I do think like it's essential for him being the titular character that he does go on some kind of journey and has some kind of change. It doesn't have to be on the good evil spectrum. It probably can't really be on the good evil spectrum, given where we know that his story goes. But it has to be on somewhere. It has to be a change of some degree in some direction.
Yeah, for sure. And not just, I went from being a Sith to being a crime boss, right?
Yeah.
Not something as superficial as that. I think is really important, because you and I talk about this all the time, maybe not in these exact terms, but in theory and theology of like Star Wars is about character change and character development on the inside, right?
Yeah.
It's about the choices that we make and how it affects the internal aspect, and so getting that with Maul, and the trailers have made it very clear this is going to be an action-packed show.
Yes.
Right. So to go kind of like we talked with Mando and Grogu of, this is going to be popcorn fare, but how do we also make it in, a good story? How do we make this an action-packed, adventure with insanely cool lightsaber duels and this art style that looks phenomenal? How do we take that, but also use those duels to tell a story, and then have the small moments like the tea ceremony and all of that stuff? Like, how do we balance all of that where we're not rushing through things, but we're also not having one episode that's just, like I think of Acolyte, right? And the episode Night, where it's like it's so great, it's filled with so much good stuff that even if the rest of the show had been good, like nothing would have compared to it, right?
Yeah.
I don't want that with Maul. I want it to be balanced. And so I'm hoping that we get that. But what's your number one butt?
Right, so my number one butt, and I'll preface this by saying that I think the odds of this like are probably low just because this show is about Maul. And he is going to be a main character, but like we've got Maul, and we've got obviously in the trailers we've gotten this Jedi that we've talked about. I think Devon. I think that's her name. Yeah. I really don't want like any kind of like paternal relationship, like father-daughter. I just like, we had Mando and Grogu, and we have Omega and the Bad Batch, and we had Obi-Wan and little Leia. And so now I just have this like trauma response. Anytime it's like there's like a Star Wars story, and there's like, oh, there's like an older male, like either like grizzled, like scarred up, like down on his luck or whatever, and then there's this like young impressionable boy, girl, whatever, and they're crossing paths. I'm like, oh no, like don't do this again. Like it's probably going to be much more like sort of Maul Ezra dynamic in terms of like master apprentice. It's probably going to be more like that again because it's Maul, so I don't know that he has ever really felt especially paternal, So I don't know that like there's a good chance of it, but I just now have like a trauma response whenever like we have these two kind of like archetypes in a Star Wars thing now. It's like, oh god, are they gonna do? Are they gonna do the like the little kid like melts the ice heart? Like please don't. Like we've gotten so much of that in the last couple of years. Please don't do that again.
Yeah, if anything, I want his heart to be hardened by this, experience. If we're gonna get a story where Devon dies, like let it be at the hands of Maul. Like we like Maul because he's cool, but we don't like Maul because he's good. There is no version of Maul that I think should be good or really even. Well, we can't have him be redeemable. He's not redeemable by the time you get to Twin Suns. Like he's not redeemed. So it'll be interesting to see how they balance that dynamic. And do they create that tension I was talking about earlier of the two masters, right?
Yeah.
But how do you do that without doing the paternal aspect? Because the Kanan Maul dynamic is like, do I want something with Maul that will give me more power but doesn't have the love, or do I want something with Kanan that's filled with love but might not have the power?
Yeah.
I don't want even a repeat of that. I want something completely new in this dynamic, and the data's not backing it up, dude. The data's not backing up that they know how to do this. So let's hope that we're wrong in this and they are able to figure it out.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our best then, because I think this is the part where we're both more excited about talking about, because we really are looking forward to this show. I know because Maul is one of my favorite characters, and Davor, Maul's not super up there for you, but you love Star Wars animation.
Yes.
So, we're both very much excited about this show. So for me, my best number 2 is something that we have discussed every now and again on the show, but I'm really looking forward to creating more of a through line with regard to the crime world.
Okay.
This is, we've talked about we need more stories around this and stuff like that. This is one of the interesting things about Solo that never got expanded on. And here's a chance to do that. And I think this is bigger than just Crimson Dawn. We have a chance to look at the whole dichotomy of the crime syndicates. We've never really gotten how they all work together, why they do the things that they do for or against one another. We've gotten brief mentions of it, like in Solo, when Dryden Voss is like, that's the Pikes, I can't mess with that.
Yeah.
So there's clearly, some kind of negotiations that go on between them. But we know these different cartels and organizations exist, But except for Maul taking them all over into the Shadow Collective, we don't have a lot about how these all go together. And so I think this has an opportunity to be a story that explores that element. And we don't know how many seasons this is going to go. So we could, lead to the rise and fall of Crimson Dawn. We could go through all of that in this series if it goes, 3, 4, 5 seasons long. But even in the first season, even if they stay on this one planet, you can do world building around the crime syndicate and the crime world by building from small to big, which is, I think, what they're going to do, essentially. We're going to start on this. What is the planet's name? It's like Janix or something like that.
Janix, yeah.
Is it? Okay. So we're going to start on Janix, which kind of sounds like a CD Coruscant, a CD or Coruscant kind of idea where it has lower levels and everything like that. So I think we'll build small and then slowly get bigger as the story progresses. And I'm just really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the possibility of these other characters that we know coming in and getting more of them. We can bring in the twins, the Hutts, we can bring in Dryden Voss. We can bring in the Pike Syndicate. We can bring in Kira. There's so many ways that you could explore the Crime Syndicate world more. And this hasn't always been something that really intrigued me. But I think it's going back to what we were talking about earlier about how they're repeating the same stories over again. This is one story they haven't repeated. They left this dangling thread. And then, except for some comics, they haven't really done a lot with it. So I really hope that they do this and take up the opportunity that this show provides them to very naturally do that, to allow us to see this other part of the galaxy that, well, for you and me, it may not be our most favorite part of the galaxy. For other people, it is. It really does add to the world building of it and provide us something new and unique that we haven't had before.
Yeah, exactly. And even just seeing like how the underworld is reacting to the Empire as this new player on the stage. It's like you think about some of these other stories that we've gotten in this time period, right? Like you get like Mask of Fear and you see how like you have the switch over from Republic to the Empire, and you see like on the politics side, like how all the centers and stuff, like how everybody's like on Coruscant is now trying to like readjust to this sort of new normal. Or you get in Bad Batch and you have the switch, and it's like, okay, well now the clones, like their whole reality has changed. Like they're trying to figure out where they fit in. And now you might, similarly for all the, all the syndicates and the Hutts and stuff, like you've now had this huge switch over in terms of like the Clone Wars are over. There's no Republic. There's no Separatists. They're now just the Empire. So it's like, okay, well, like how do you now deal with this new government that is now going to want, is going to want to assert its own power and, maybe take control of some of these things that these crime organizations have traditionally controlled. So I think that's also going to be interesting potentially.
Yeah, for sure. Again, it's all about trying something new and exploring a new aspect. That doesn't mean that we can't bring in elements that we've seen before. Like you mentioned, we've seen how people react to the Empire before. This is just a new element of it, which just builds more and more of the galaxy. It's to me, it's very much like, getting to see different types of Jedi, expanding what it means to be a Jedi. We started with Luke and Anakin, who were two sides of the same coin that behaved in different ways. You add in, Ahsoka's and Obi-Wan's and Rey's and all these characters that have different expressions. And then you blow that up even bigger in the High Republic, right?
Yeah.
This is just another way to do that through a different type of storytelling that I think could be really, really cool. All right. What is your best number 2?
All right. My best number 2. So I don't necessarily want the show to just be like one season, especially like if it ends in a place and like it does an interesting enough storytelling, like like have it do season 2, season 3, like whatever makes the most sense in terms of like telling the story that they're telling here. But I do still hope that Maul Shadowlord does end up being our actual swan song to the Clone Wars first. We all thought Bad Batch was going to be it, because it really did seem that way, because it's like it's about clones, and it was sort of like it was George Lucas's kind of last imprint, like in Star Wars, kind of like one of the last thing he did, which is like the Bad Batch, which is a story that like he had come up with and then didn't get told because Clone Wars got canceled, and then we got season 7 and we got the Bad Batch, and then we made a Bad Batch song the show. And it seemed at that point like, okay, like we're just doing this little sort of like coda to the Clone Wars story here with the Bad Batch. And now we kind of got another coda with Maul, where it's like, okay, like we're now gonna pick up Maul and we're gonna like take that thread and continue it on. And again, like have that story go on as long as it organically needs to get it to the end that you want to. But like just from a sort of like larger perspective in terms of like the ecosystem of Star Wars animation, it is so wedded to like Clone Wars as being sort of the sun, and then like all these other shows being like little like appendages off. Like I would love to see the next like big animation project. It's not like a Visions or something like that, but like actual like canon like animated storytelling. Like be something that's a little bit farther removed from that world.
I think that makes sense. To me, it would make the most sense, honestly, for this to be the swan song, because we have Rebels, which continues on the Jedi storyline of the Clone Wars. We have Bad Batch, which continues on the clone side of things. And now we're getting Maul Shadowlord, which continues on the dark side of things. You know? So, and I'm imagining we're going to get some more Empire in here. Maybe you'll get lucky. There'll be some Separatist lore and how that ended in here. But I think it makes a lot of sense for this to be that. And to do that, it needs to really land, you know, like it needs to be pretty clear that this is that to make it feel fulfilling in that aspect of things. So, no, that's a good kind of a cheat. Feels a little bit like a Drew answer. A little bit, but I'm not mad about it. I'm not mad about it because I think you're on to something here where it goes back to kind of a theme that's been coming up throughout the episode, which is don't keep telling the same stories in the same places at the same time, right? And even though this is a new type of story, it does fall in that Clone Wars verse that you were talking about. So leads perfectly into my number one. So thank you for teeing it up, which is this show has the opportunity that I'm really looking forward to pursue new themes and ideas in animation. You know, animation is my favorite Star Wars. It also does tend to retread the same stories over and over again. We haven't, however, had the story from the POV of a villain, which means this show has a chance to do something that's never been done before. And I want them to very much lean into that newness, right? Don't make this a show that just says the dark side is bad. Explore the complexity of it. Look at the ideology of it. Particularly look at the dynamics and desire for power as a sense of fulfillment, a means of fulfillment and self-awareness, right? And they have so many ways that they can do this in how they tell the story. You can look at the music. You can look at the art style. You can look at the dialogue. You can look at the character development. Like, pull anything out of it. And you can create these themes because Star Wars has done that, right? The music has always been the oxygen, right? I really hope we get just the eeriest, deep, like Halloween style music, right? And I don't mean like Monster Mash. I'm talking like Halloween, the theme song for Halloween kind of haunts you type stuff. That's what I want in the music, because that's what I want in the themes and ideas that they come up with. You know, we've already got this new art style that I'm really looking forward to that is much more chaotic than what we've had before. The watercolors and everything like that kind of splattering everywhere. We've got, you know, the dialogue, of course, always helping to tell the story, but it feels like, you know, we got that original teaser with the tea ceremony and everything. It feels like we're going to have these small moments throughout the story where we can really get into the ideology of things and really the semantics of things. And, you know, one thing I like about dark side characters is characters like Maul and Dooku, when they're not wrong, their perspective is just off, right? That's really interesting to me. And then, of course, like we talked about with the character development of developing an Order 66 Jedi survivor in a new way, building Maul without, you know, destroying the lore that we have already. all of these things. Everything in this show, save for that it's part of the Clone Wars verse, has the potential to be new. And I want them to do something new, right? I'm not saying this is the linchpin upon which my liking or disliking of the show will exist, because I want to watch this show for what it's worth, and what it is, not what I expect it to be, right? This is not about setting expectations for what we want and being satisfied getting what we want. It's about really setting expectations for the intention we're going into watching the show with. And my intention is to look for the joy of new things that it has to offer. I just am hopeful that it's going to deliver on them.
Yeah, I mean, for all the things that we talked about in the butts about like our concerns about like how fresh and original is this going to feel? Is it going to feel like retreading similar sorts of stories that we've gotten in the last couple of years? There is, as you point out, right? Like there is the big opportunity of we have never had a Star Wars show in which our main character was an antagonist. Right, the closest that we've gotten to this point was Book of Boba Fett, which started a character who has traditionally been an antagonist, but even in that show, they still moved him into a more heroic direction.
Yep.
And obviously, for all sorts of reasons, you can't do that with Maul, and so that really does have this big opportunity to like, what is a different sort of story that we can tell that might, like you said, might feel different in the themes, might feel different in in the morals. Because I think like the immediate comparison that I think about is like the Delilah Dawson books. Like, particularly, I'm thinking about like Phasma and Rise of the Red Blade, less about Black Spire, but like there's always the there's always the sort of like cliche of like, oh well, like Star Wars stories always end in hope, and like those two books don't end hopefully. Like
no, they
really don't. Like and so it's like, oh, okay, like are we gonna get that on screen? Like what's that gonna look like? That could feel very different, right? Like versus a lot of all these other stories that end in these more sort of like heroic, hopeful, looking to the future kind of sort of ways. Like maybe this ends in a much darker place.
And I'm okay with that.
Me too.
I'm totally okay with that. And I think Star Wars fans are good with that. I always think about entry points to Star Wars, right? And I've got a friend at work who's got a young kid that he's like they've done Young Jedi Adventures. Like he wants to get them into Clone Wars and stuff like that, but he's not sure, when the right time is and stuff like this.
Yeah.
I don't want this to be a show where you question whether you can show it to your kids or not. I want you to not be able to show it to your kids. Like, not in that I want it to be, R-rated or anything like that. I want it to be dark. I want this to be animation made for people who have grown up with Star Wars animation, right? And that this be kind of like we were talking about with it being the Swan Song. Let this be the last piece of Star Wars animation that you show your kids, because they've got to build up to it both in the depth of the themes, the complexity of the themes and ideas that it gets into, the darkness that it gets into, and how complicated that can be, right? Because hope is one of the things about it is it's beautifully simple, right? Darkness is not. Darkness is very complicated. People come at it from different angles. They come at it with different traumas and stuff like that. And so it's more complicated for somebody to explore. And I need them. No, I shouldn't say that. That's setting expectations. I really, really want them to lean into doing that. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. Do you have any other like honorable mentions? Anything we didn't talk about you wanted to bring up about Maul Shadowlord?
Let's see. I still have to do my number one best.
Oh, we did. Okay. No, that was mine we were talking about.
Yes.
Look, see, I got so excited I couldn't even. All right, tell us your number one best.
Yeah. So it sort of plugs in a little bit to your number two best, like it's sort of related to the crime lord, like sort of like the underworld stuff. I was like, I want them to really lean into this like crime noir kind of vibe that we've gotten like I don't know if you've read Shadow of Maul, which is like it's the first issue of like the tie-in like prequel comic.
I haven't. No, not yet.
Okay, I think there's only one issue that's been out so far, but like that one like is very heavily about it's like mainly centered on like the kind of like main sort of like police detective character that we're gonna get in the show, but like it very leans heavily into like that kind of sort of style of storytelling of like here is this police officer and he's kind of like okay like there's something dark going on in the city, you know, like on the planet. I gotta figure out like what's happening and I gotta go down into the depths with the criminals and figure out what's happening. And I think like we've gotten a lot of that by like particularly that second trailer that they dropped for the show. I mean, even the first one like has really had that. I mean, like it gave us a Maroc jump scare, which those were words that I never thought I would ever use together in the English language. You know, like I really want like we've gotten all like there's a lot of different, you know, on the different Star Wars shows that we've gotten, like they've a lot of them have like taken different spins of like we've gotten Mandalorian's like okay, you know, a Western in Star Wars, but a Western, and then like Book of Boba Fett is like The Godfather, but it's Star Wars. You know, like you've gotten like all these little inspirations in terms of like these different like genres or these different like types of stories, and like I really want Maul Shadowlord to be like okay, like here's your sort of like hard-boiled kind of detective crime story in Star Wars. Give me that.
I think that would be sick. I think that would be so good, dude. And this art style, I think, kind of plays to that a little bit, you know, where we're not going to get like black and white, you know, Star Wars, but this is a very, it's watercolor, right? It's very primal. Yes. It's very original. Not original as in unique, but original as in like OG kind of how you go about things, right? And if you think about, you know, like what's the first way people learn to paint is with watercolors, right? You get your little watercolors at elementary school and that's how you paint, right? So it kind of taps into some of that primalness and that you know, noir aspect that comes with it, but also like noir is something that is beautifully simple too, right? Or beautifully complicated is what I was trying to say. Like it's very easy to understand, very visual, right? But there's these themes that lay underneath, underground and everything like that. There's this internal complexity that the characters have in such stories. And it's a very particular genre, right? It's not an easy genre to land. And so maybe that's why Star Wars hasn't leaned into it yet, but leaning into it now would be really, really cool.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
So I guess we'll have to wait and see. We've got April 6th coming right around the corner. And then before you know it, it's going to be May the 4th. And we're going to be talking about the end of this show. I'm kind of sad that it's all happening in 8 weeks or however many weeks it's going to be.
Yeah.
I guess
those
4
2
weeks.
episodes a week drops.
I'm very excited about getting 2 episodes a week. I'm not excited that it means it all happens in a month. But here we are. We're going to lead into, of course, talking about Mando and Grogu when that comes out. So we've got all kinds of stuff coming, but after the show comes out here with regards to Maul Shadowlord, we will get into our best and butts of what actually happened in the show. So make sure you're subscribed so you can keep up with all of our content, including, like I mentioned, Don't Burn the Sacred Text. We're starting to pump out some more episodes there. We, of course, have Sith Talk, our companion show to Clashing Sabers, where we talk more of the news and current events going on, whereas Clashing Sabers more deep dives into things. And then Mark is always hard at work on more episodes of Forever Star Wars. So always got good stuff coming for you on here. And then, of course, we have our Patreon, like I mentioned earlier, where Amanda puts out other episodes, just exploring different things like connections to Marvel and personality types and just all kinds of cool, wacky, in-depth analysis going on there. She really covers the breadth of everything you could possibly want in the Patreon, and you get to do some good for the galaxy by putting Star Wars books into classrooms across the country. If you want to be a part of doing that more directly, or you're not able to support financially, go over to ClashingSabers.net and nominate a teacher. I got 2 boxes of books in my closet. I need them to go somewhere. Okay, I need them to go somewhere because I can't keep tripping over them. One of these days, it's going to end poorly for me. What I'm asking you to do is save a life and give a book. Okay? Go to clashingsabers.net, nominate a teacher near you. Anywhere in the United States, we'll send them some books. And these are not small boxes, by the way. Not the boxes in my closet. Those aren't small. But the boxes we send them, we're not sending them 20 books. We're sending them 100 books. We're filling out a classroom library with these books that go with the teacher. They stay with the teacher their whole career. Teacher can use them for whatever purposes they need them to. I know, for example, this week, thank God I had a library in my classroom because we didn't have internet all week. And I needed kids to be able to have books in their hands and physical books and not be reading on the computer, right? We can help with that by going to clashingsabers.net and nominating a teacher. Davor, if they want to find you or keep up this conversation with you in particular, where can they find you and where can they listen to all that you're doing?
All right. So if you want to follow me on social media, I'm over on Blue Sky at Demondum. You can also listen to me as a host, co-host over on Space 50s, a Star Wars and Taylor Swift podcast. That also my wife, the one and only McDowell.
Dude, we didn't even think about what we talked about. Noir and new characters, and all this stuff. And really, we don't even need Maul in this show if we have Batch 8.
Hi ho.
But also Maul. Keep
Also
Maul
Maul.
in the show, people. Yeah,
Yes.
also Maul.